She's already told you she loves you. She just didn't use those words. There is something happening around you right now. Possibly in a conversation you had this week. Possibly in a moment that felt completely ordinary. And you walked away from it without understanding what it actually was. Not because you weren't paying attention. Not because you don't care. But because no one ever taught you to read this particular language. And it is a language. A real one. With its own grammar, its own vocabulary, its own specific signals that mean something precise and important. Most men are taught to listen for declarations, for the direct statement, for the moment she finally says the words out loud. And so they wait for that moment, sometimes patiently, sometimes anxiously, while completely missing the thing that has already been happening for weeks. The thing that, if you knew how to see it, would answer every question you've been quietly carrying. Here is what I want you to hold on to for the rest of this video. There is a specific category of sharing. Not compliments, not physical affection, not any of the signals most people talk about, that women engage in only when they have fully, genuinely, irreversibly fallen in love. And she may already be doing it with you right now. By the end of this video, you will know exactly what to look for. Most men are waiting for a woman to say the words. But by the time she says them out loud, she's already been showing you for weeks, sometimes months, in a completely different way. The reason she doesn't lead with a declaration is not confusion. It is not ambivalence. It is something much more fundamental to the way women experience emotional attachment. When a woman begins to fall deeply in love, she doesn't move toward announcement. She moves toward safety. The brain, when processing genuine emotional vulnerability, instinctively seeks evidence that the environment is secure before it exposes what is most precious. What psychologists call affect regulation, the unconscious management of emotional risk, means that the deeper the feeling, the more carefully it is protected until trust is fully established. In practical terms, this means that long before she ever says the words, she has already been testing the ground. Not manipulatively, not consciously most of the time. She is simply following an internal logic that runs deeper than strategy. And the way she tests that ground, the way she determines whether you are truly safe, is through what she chooses to share with you. This is the framework you need before anything else lands correctly. Because what we are exploring today is not about grand gestures or dramatic confessions. It is about the quiet, specific, and deeply intentional things a woman brings to a man when she has made her decision about him. When she has decided, somewhere beneath the surface of her thoughts, that he is the one. The sharing is the love. It arrives before the words do. And once you understand that, you begin to see everything differently. She texts you a photo of her lunch. It's not a particularly good lunch. There's no real reason to send it, except one. When two people first begin spending time together, there is a natural performance layer involved. This is not dishonesty. It is simply the normal human instinct to present the most favorable version of ourselves to someone whose opinion we are still uncertain of. Early in a connection, a woman will share what is interesting, what is impressive, what she believes reflects well on her. She is not pretending to be someone she isn't. She is simply highlighting the chapters she is most confident about, but something shifts when love enters the picture. The performance layer begins to dissolve. And the most telling sign of that dissolution is not that she becomes more romantic or more openly affectionate. It is that she starts sharing the completely unremarkable parts of her day with you. The ordinary Tuesday. The slightly frustrating queue at the grocery store. The random thought that crossed her mind during her drive home. The lunch that was fine, nothing special, not worth documenting. And yet she sent you a picture of it anyway. This matters more than it appears to. When a woman includes you in her mundane moments, she has stopped needing to impress you and started needing you present. Those are two completely different motivations, and the second one is the one that belongs to love. You might be thinking, couldn't this simply mean she's comfortable with me? without it necessarily meaning love? And yes, comfort and love are not identical, but pay attention to the direction and frequency. Comfort produces the occasional casual mention. Love produces a pattern of reaching toward you specifically, not because something significant happened, but because you have become the person she wants to be near even when nothing significant is happening. One or two ordinary messages mean very little. A consistent, unprompted current of small daily moments flowing toward you means something else entirely. She said something to you once, maybe quietly, maybe late at night, that didn't quite sound like her usual self. A little more uncertain, a little more exposed. Women carry fear with considerable discipline, not because they feel it less, but because they have learned, usually through accumulated experience, that expressing fear openly carries social risk. Fear can be dismissed. Fear can be used against you. Fear can mark you as unstable or overly emotional in contexts where you need to appear composed, so most women become skilled at containing it, rerouting it into humor or practicality or silence. What this means is that when a woman shares her genuine fears with a man, not as complaint, not as performance, but as actual confession, she is doing something that requires a level of trust she does not extend widely. She is choosing, consciously or not, to be seen in her most undefended state. Of course, not every expression of worry or anxiety qualifies here. The distinction matters. Surface-level stress, frustration about work, anxiety about an upcoming event, can be shared with almost anyone she feels reasonably comfortable with. What we are talking about is a different register entirely. The fear she normally keeps private. The worry that feels too vulnerable to say out loud to most people. The uncertainty about whether she is enough, whether she is lovable, whether the life she is trying to build is really going to be okay. When she brings one of those to you, and she may not label it as fear, it may arrive as a quiet question, or a story told almost offhandedly, or a confession that begins with, "I've never really talked about this." She is handing you something rare. She is telling you, without saying it, that she believes you will not break what she is offering. The mistake most men make when this happens is to shift immediately into problem-solving mode. The instinct to fix is genuine and well-intentioned, but it can accidentally communicate that her fear is a problem to be resolved, rather than a part of herself to be received. What she is looking for in that moment is simpler and more powerful than a solution. She is looking for evidence that you can hold what she has given you without flinching, without minimizing it, and without turning away. There was a moment she told you something about her past, and the way she said it felt different, quieter, like she'd been carrying it a long time. Every woman has chapters of her life she does not share casually. A family situation she is still making sense of. A version of herself she has spent years moving away from. A relationship that left a mark she doesn't fully discuss. A mistake she made once that still surfaces sometimes in the back of her thoughts, even now. These are not things she brings to people she simply likes. They are not things she shares to fill conversational space, or to build connection through mutual disclosure. They are things she has protected, often for years, because sharing them requires something very specific. The belief that the person receiving them will not use them to define her, diminish her, or quietly step back. When a woman shares her shame material with a man, she is not looking for absolution. She is not asking him to tell her it wasn't that bad, or that she shouldn't feel embarrassed, or that it doesn't matter. What she is doing is allowing herself to be fully known by someone she has decided is worth the risk of full exposure. The specific way this arrives is important to recognize. It does not typically come with drama or obvious emotional weight. It tends to come quietly, almost matter-of-factly. She says the thing, and then she watches, not dramatically, not obviously, but she watches how you respond. Whether your face shifts, whether your voice changes, whether you stay. Before we continue, there is one additional layer here that most conversations about this topic skip entirely. The timing matters. Early stage oversharing, the kind that happens in the first few weeks of connection, where someone unloads a great deal of personal history very quickly, is typically an anxiety response, not a love signal. What we are describing is different. It is the deliberate, unhurried unveiling that happens once real attachment has formed. The difference between someone who cannot contain themselves and someone who has chosen to open a door they usually keep closed. Remember what I mentioned at the very beginning, that there was a category of signal most men have never been taught to recognize. We are moving into the deepest layers of it now. She mentioned something once, almost offhand, about something she's always wanted. Not a vacation. Not a goal. Something quieter than that. Most women have an interior life that is rarely fully visible. Not because they are secretive by nature, but because they have learned through experience that certain kinds of dreams, the ones that feel fragile, the ones that reveal who they most deeply want to be, are safest when kept close. Dreams that have been dismissed before tend to go underground. Ambitions that were once met with skepticism tend to become private, the version of herself she believes she could become, if everything aligned. That version is not something she describes to most people. When she begins sharing that interior world with you, something significant has shifted. This is not the same as discussing plans. Plans are practical and external. They can be shared with anyone without real vulnerability. What we are talking about is the private landscape of desire and becoming. The thing she has wanted for years that she has stopped mentioning in most conversations because it stopped feeling safe to mention. The small, specific dream that reveals something true and tender about who she actually is. She might say it simply, without preamble. She might return to it more than once across different conversations, each time going slightly deeper. She might tell you in a way that is watching for your reaction. Not obviously, but you would notice if you were paying attention. To see whether you receive it with the same seriousness with which she offered it. When a woman includes a man in her future self, in the quiet interior version of who she is moving toward, she has placed him inside something she guards carefully. She has decided he is not only part of her present, but worth sharing her most private forward motion with. That is not a small thing. That is not something she does for someone she is unsure about. You were both quiet. Not awkward quiet, just quiet. And she didn't try to fix it. This is the signal I have held for last. And it is the one that is most consistently misread. Not just missed, but actively interpreted as its opposite. Because most men, when a woman goes quiet around them, assume something has gone wrong. They assume she is withdrawing. They assume she is bored or disengaged or dissatisfied, and so they fill the silence, or they worry about it, or they interpret it as a warning sign, when in fact for many women, it is the most intimate thing she knows how to offer. Here is the psychology underneath this. In the early stages of a relationship, a woman is almost always managing how she appears. She is engaged, warm, verbally present, not because she is being dishonest, but because she is still in the stage where presentation requires some conscious energy. The performance layer, even a gentle one, demands effort. And effort requires that you remain somewhat alert to how you are being received. When a woman is fully, genuinely in love, when she has decided on a man at a level that is no longer provisional, something in her simply releases. The effort of managing perception dissolves. She no longer needs to fill space with conversation to demonstrate her engagement. She no longer needs to entertain or be entertaining. She can simply be present, beside him, in whatever the moment is, without needing the moment to be anything other than what it is. This is what shared silence means when it comes from love. It means she has dropped every single defense and has simply allowed herself to exist near you without agenda. The physical details matter here, because this is where the distinction between comfortable silence and disconnected silence becomes clear. When the silence comes from love, she remains physically close. She does not angle her body away. She does not reach for her phone as a substitute for presence. She might glance at you occasionally without speaking, a look that carries something warm and unhurried in it. She is not somewhere else in her mind. She is entirely there, with you, in the quiet. Contrast that with the silence of discomfort or distance, which has a different texture entirely. That silence creates physical withdrawal. The body turns slightly away. The gaze avoids rather than rests. There is an absence behind it rather than a fullness. Now you might raise a reasonable objection here. Couldn't easy silence simply be the result of two introverted people who are comfortable together, without it necessarily meaning deep love? And yes, compatibility and comfort can produce quiet ease on their own. But what elevates shared silence from comfortable to revelatory is the combination. When a woman is sharing her ordinary moments, her fears, her past, her private dreams, and also giving you her unguarded silence, all of these together form something coherent and unmistakable. Each alone is interesting. All of them together is a declaration, made in every language except the one she has not yet spoken aloud. She is not withholding the words. She is simply saying everything else first. Everything we have covered today adds up to a single picture. The ordinary Tuesday messages. The fear she rarely says out loud. The part of her past she has been carrying quietly. The private version of herself she is moving toward. And the silence she stops trying to fill when she is beside you. These are not separate behaviors happening by coincidence. They are one woman doing one thing, allowing herself to be fully known by someone she has fully chosen. The overarching truth underneath all of this is straightforward. A woman who loves you does not only show it in the moments she performs affection. She shows it most clearly in the moments she stops performing at all. You now have something that most men your age were never given. A real framework, built on how women actually experience and express love, rather than how we assume they do. Not tactics, not a checklist to run through nervously. Just the ability to recognize what is already in front of you. And you do not need to overanalyze every quiet moment or every ordinary message. That would miss the point entirely. What you are looking for is a pattern, a direction of movement, a current flowing consistently toward you in these specific ways. When you see it, you will know it. You will feel it land in a way that is different from anything else. I want to ask you something, and I genuinely want to hear your answer. Which one of these has a woman shared with you? And did you realize what it meant at the time? Tell me in the comments. I read every one. If what we cover here matters to you, the real psychology, the quiet signals, the things that are actually happening beneath the surface of how women behave, then this is the channel you want to stay close to, because that is all we do here. In the next video, I am going to show you what happens after she shares these things, because that is when she starts watching you very carefully, and what she is watching for will surprise you.